The drive from Seattle to Tacoma felt endless. Rain hammered against the windshield as my 7-year-old son Jamie hummed in the back seat, clutching the handmade card he'd spent 3 days creating. His crayon drawing showed a grandfather and grandson fishing together, something they'd never done but something Jamie desperately hoped would happen tonight. "Mom, do you think Grandpa will like it?" he asked for the 5th time. I glanced at his hopeful brown eyes in the rearview mirror. "He's going to love it, sweetheart," I said, wanting so badly for that to be true. It had been 2 years since I'd been invited to a family gathering. 2 years since my divorce from Marcus became final, since I'd chosen to leave a marriage that was slowly destroying me. My family had loved Marcus, his corporate job, his country club membership, the way he made them feel sophisticated. They hadn't loved the version of him that came home and reminded me daily that I was lucky he'd married me at all. When I finally left, my parents made their position clear: I was making a mistake, being selfish, throwing away a good man. My sister Rachel had been direct: "You're embarrassing us. What are we supposed to say?" But 3 weeks ago, my mother called. "Your father's turning 65. We're having a dinner. Just family. We'd like you to come. Both of you. Both of you." Those 3 words made my heart skip. After 2 years of exclusion, they were finally acknowledging Jamie existed, that he was part of this family too. I'd cried after that call, tears of relief and hope. Maybe time had softened them. Maybe we could rebuild what had been broken. Jamie had been overjoyed. He asked endless questions about who would be there, whether he could sit next to Grandpa. To him, this wasn't a reunion, it was a beginning. The restaurant was upscale, the harbor room, with white tablecloths and a view of Commencement Bay. I felt anxiety creep up my spine as we walked through the rain, Jamie's small hand in mine, his other hand protecting his card. Inside, I could hear them before I saw them: my father's loud laugh, multiple conversations overlapping. My stomach tightened. She'd said, "Just family," but this sounded like more. The hostess opened the door to the private room, and my breath caught. The table was set for 20 people. I recognized everyone: my parents, Rachel and her husband, my brother Derek and his wife, aunt and uncle, cousins. And then I saw them, Marcus's parents. My ex-in-laws were here, at my father's birthday dinner. The conversation barely paused when we entered. My mother stood up, her smile bright but her eyes nervous. "Emily. You made it. And Jamie, look how big you've gotten." Jamie beamed, holding up his card. "I made this for Grandpa." "How lovely," my mother said, already looking past him toward the table. "Everyone, Emily and Jamie are here." A few people nodded. Derek raised his wine glass vaguely. Rachel remained seated. And my father, whose birthday we were celebrating, glanced over briefly before returning to his conversation with Marcus's father. The message was suddenly, painfully clear: I had been invited, but not forgiven. And Jamie had been included only because excluding a child explicitly would look too cruel. "Come, sit down," my mother said, gesturing toward the table. I scanned for empty chairs, for place settings indicating where we belonged. The table was full. Every seat had a name card in elegant calligraphy. My mother's name, my father's, Rachel's family, Derek's family, extended relatives, even Marcus's parents. "Mom," I said quietly, "where are we sitting?" "Oh, well," she fluttered her hands nervously, "we weren't entirely sure you'd make it with the weather." "There are exactly 20 chairs and 20 name cards," I interrupted. "Where do Jamie and I sit?" Rachel appeared at my elbow, leaning close. Her voice was barely a whisper as she looked pointedly at Jamie. "There's not really a place for him." The words hung in the air. Jamie's hand tightened around mine. His 7-year-old brain was trying to reconcile the excitement he'd felt all week with this sudden rejection. "What?" I managed to say. "It's a full table, Em. This is an adult dinner. We thought you'd understand." "You invited us," I said, my voice rising. Several people turned to look. Mom specifically said, "Both of you." Rachel glanced back nervously. Marcus is in town. His parents wanted to see him, and Dad thought it would be nice, and it just seemed easier if my son wasn't here, I finished. The pieces fell into place. They'd invited us to save face, to say they'd extended the invitation. But they'd never intended for Jamie to have a seat at his own grandfather's birthday. I looked past Rachel. Marcus was there, sitting near my father in his tailored suit. He caught my eye and looked away. My father still hadn't acknowledged us, laughing at something Marcus's father said. "Mom?" Jamie's voice was small. "Don't they want us here?" That question, asked in a child's voice trying to understand why his family didn't want him, broke something inside me. All my therapy, all my preparation, none of it had readied me for watching my son realize he wasn't wanted. "Let me talk to Mom," Rachel said, backing away. "Maybe we can bring another chair." "Don't bother," I said coldly. I recognized this clarity. It was the same feeling from the night I'd finally left Marcus. The moment you stop negotiating with people who don't value you. My father still hadn't looked at us. Not once since we'd arrived. His silence was the most honest answer he'd ever given me. "Jamie," I said gently, kneeling down. "We're going to go." "But I wanted to give Grandpa his card," he said, eyes filling with tears. "I know, baby. But Grandpa doesn't deserve your beautiful card. He doesn't deserve you at all." I took his hand and walked toward my father. Conversation stopped as I approached. "Dad," I said. He finally looked at me, expression guarded. "Happy birthday." "Thank you, Emily," he said formally. "Jamie made you something." Jamie hesitated, then placed the card on the table. My father glanced at it but didn't pick it up. "That's nice," he said, like a server mentioning daily specials. I waited. For an invitation to sit. For acknowledgement of his grandson's effort. For any explanation. Nothing came. "You know what's sad?" I said quietly. "Jamie's been so excited. He thought tonight he'd finally know his grandfather. He doesn't remember when we were all family. To him, this was going to be a beginning." "Emily," my mother started. "I came hoping we could rebuild something. I thought maybe you'd realize that punishing me was one thing, but punishing a child was something else." I was wrong. Marcus cleared his throat. "Emily, maybe if you'd called ahead." "Don't," I snapped. "You don't get to speak to me." I looked at my father. "I spent years trying to be the daughter you wanted. I married who you approved of, even knowing it was wrong. I stayed too long because I feared disappointing you. When I finally chose happiness and my son's well-being, you cut me off. You chose Marcus over your own daughter." "That's not," my father started weakly. "You didn't even save him a chair. Your grandson drove an hour in the rain with a handmade gift, and you didn't save him a chair. Because having Marcus here was more important than your own flesh and blood?" The room was silent. I learned something tonight. I made the right choice 2 years ago. Not just leaving Marcus, but leaving this toxic, conditional version of family where love has terms and conditions. I picked Jamie up and turned to leave. "Emily, wait," my mother called. "Please, we can figure something out." "You had 2 years to figure something out. 2 years to call, to visit, to be a grandmother. You chose not to. Tonight you invited my abusive ex-husband but didn't provide a seat for my son. There's nothing to figure out." I carried Jamie toward the door, his head on my shoulder, body shaking with sobs. "I hope it was worth it," I said, looking back. "I hope Marcus's approval and your pride is worth losing your daughter and grandson. Because this is the last time you'll see us. Jamie's an amazing kid, kind, creative, full of love. But you'll never know that, because you chose a son-in-law over a grandson." No one responded. My father stared at his plate. My mother cried but didn't follow. Rachel looked uncomfortable. Marcus looked sad, like he was the victim. The rain had intensified. I buckled Jamie into his seat, and he curled up crying. I sat gripping the steering wheel, my own tears finally coming. "I'm sorry, Mom," Jamie said. "I'm sorry I ruined Grandpa's birthday." "Jamie, no. Listen. You did not ruin anything. Nothing that happened was your fault. You're wonderful, kind, smart, creative. Anyone who doesn't want you is missing out. What happened was about them, their choices, their inability to love people who don't fit their perfect box." "I don't understand," he whispered. "That's good, it means you're not like them. You have a kind heart that can't understand cruelty. Don't ever lose that." We drove in silence, then Jamie spoke. "Mom? Can we go to Dylan's Pizza?" Dylan's was our favorite place, with arcade games and the best pizza in the city. We went there for celebrations and bad days alike. "Absolutely," I said. "And play the racing game?" "As many games as you want." In the mirror, I saw him perk up. His tears stopped, a small smile forming. This kid was resilient. He'd been hurt but was already finding his way back to joy. He'd learned that from me. In 2 years since leaving Marcus, I'd built a life where happiness was possible, where we didn't need anyone's approval. I'd built a chosen family, my co-worker Sarah who babysat, my neighbor Mrs. Chen who taught Jamie to make dumplings, Dylan the single dad whose daughter was Jamie's best friend. We had a family. Just not the one I'd been born into. Dylan's was warm and perfect. We ordered our usual, played games, shared a giant cookie. By the time we left, he was laughing. On the drive home, Jamie fell asleep. I looked at his peaceful face and made a decision. I wasn't going to let tonight define us. I was going to love him fiercely, show him what real family looks like, and build a life so full of joy that their absence wouldn't leave a hole. At home, I tucked him into bed. He stirred. "Mom?" "Yeah, baby?" Today was fun. Even the not fun part. Because we got pizza after. I kissed his forehead. "We'll always get pizza after, okay? Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together. Promise?" "Promise." After he slept, I pulled out my phone. 3 missed calls from my mother, 2 texts from Rachel asking to just talk. I deleted them and blocked both numbers. Then I finally, fully let go. I released the fantasy that they'd change, that there'd be some tearful reconciliation. That wasn't going to happen. And I didn't need it to. I'd spent so long believing their approval was essential. But listening to my son breathe in the next room, I realized I was more complete than ever. I was a good mother. A hard worker. I was teaching my son that self-respect matters more than family obligation, that boundaries are healthy, that love shouldn't have conditions. The next morning, Jamie found his card on the counter. "Should we mail it to Grandpa?" "No," I said gently. "Let's keep it. Someday you'll want to remember tonight." The bad part? The part where we chose ourselves. Where we decided people who don't appreciate us don't deserve our effort. That's worth remembering. He placed it in his treasure box and went to watch cartoons. He'd processed it and moved on. Kids are remarkable. I carried it for weeks. First came anger, burning away guilt about leaving. Then grief, for the family I'd wanted but never had. But eventually came peace. Real peace from accepting things as they are. 3 months later, my mother sent a letter full of justifications. She was sorry I'd misunderstood. She wanted to be part of Jamie's life. But there was no acknowledgement of what actually happened, no real apology. I wrote back one line, "Thank you for showing me who you are. I finally believe you." I never heard from her again. But others reached out. My Aunt Susan, horrified by what happened, wanted to stay in touch separately. My cousin Maria admired my courage. Old family friends said they were sorry. These connections mattered. They reminded me family isn't about blood, it's about people who show up, who choose you, who celebrate you. Jamie and I built something beautiful. We created traditions: Pizza Fridays, Saturday pancakes, Sunday adventures. For his 8th birthday, 20 kids came to the park, plus Sarah, Mrs. Chen, Dylan, and his daughter. No blood relatives, and it was perfect. That's when I knew we'd made it. All these people had chosen to be in our lives, loved Jamie genuinely, showed up consistently. The empty chair had been a gift. It forced me to see truth and let go of people who didn't value us. Jamie is 12 now. He doesn't ask about grandparents. They're just people his mom used to know who made bad choices. Our real family is chosen: Sarah, Mrs. Chen, Dylan and Lily, friends, neighbors, teachers who've shown us unconditional love. This is what I want Jamie to understand: family is who shows up, who makes space for you, who celebrates your existence. The empty chair taught us that. It was painful and humiliating but also liberating. The moment I stopped begging for crumbs from people who saw my love as inconvenience. The moment I chose my son and myself over fantasy acceptance. Some call that giving up. I call it growing up. I call it freedom.